The human child's brain splattered across the Galactic Council floor as the alien executioner coldly fired his disruptor. That innocent blood unleashed humanity's fury and brought forth the full wrath of Earth's most ancient warships, hidden away for centuries, awaiting this very moment of betrayal. Captain Logan Carter stood on the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, orbiting Earth, fists and jaw clenched as he watched the live feed. The repulsive Ithorian counselor Xanth had just smugly announced the Council's ban on all human FTL travel, confining mankind to its home system. Then, for the crime of a human boy allegedly vandalizing an alien shrine, they brutally executed the crying child. "Let this be a lesson to your primitive species," Xanth sneered at the camera. "Humanity's disobedience will no longer be tolerated." The feed cut out. Logan's voice was a hoarse whisper. "They killed a child." Commander Hawkins gripped the rail, knuckles white. "What are your orders, sir?" A cold fury filled Logan's eyes as he turned to his crew. "Signal the fleet, power up the Nova cannons, and plot an FTL jump straight to the Galactic Council's headquarters." This was the day humanity had long dreaded, yet secretly prepared for. The day the aliens would bare their true fangs and cross a line they could never come back from. The day that would see humanity's homeworld threatened and the Council's betrayal of galactic law. The day had come to make the alien aggressors pay in blood and unleash the full might of Earth's most powerful warships. Ships that had not seen battle in centuries. Ships that would shake the galaxy this day and burn the Council's worlds to ashes. Deep within the heart of the Rocky Mountains, the stone cracked and parted, camouflage doors swinging open. Captain Logan Carter marched down into the hidden depths, flanked by his highest-ranking Earth Defense Force officers. The long concrete halls were dark, lit only by flickering fluorescent bulbs. Boot heels clicked on cement as the group approached the end of the corridor. There stood an immense blast door, solid steel several feet thick. Logan stepped forward, placing his palm against the biometric scanner. It beeped in recognition, and slowly, ponderously, the door began to grind open. It swung wide to reveal a cavernous underground hangar shrouded in shadow. Logan hit a switch on the wall, and floodlights snapped on, illuminating the secret space. The officers gasped, eyes going wide. Filling the hangar were rows upon rows of warships, their hulls forged from a strange iridescent metal that glimmered under the lights. The ships were angular, sleek, predatory. They were like nothing any of the men had seen before. Logan turned to face his men, his expression hard as granite. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the Sigma fleet, built in secret during the early days of human space exploration and hidden away as a last resort. When the Council confined us to our home system, they had no idea of the ace up our sleeve." Commander Hawkins stepped closer to the nearest vessel, reaching out to run a hand along the prow, brow furrowed in awe. "I thought the Sigma fleet was just a myth." Logan shook his head. "The Sigma fleet is very real, and it's time to show the galaxy exactly what human ingenuity and determination can accomplish. The Council wants to confine us to Earth? Let's see how they like it when we show up on their doorstep with technology centuries ahead of their own. With the power of the Sigma fleet, we will make them pay for their crimes and secure humanity's place among the stars." The gathered officers exchanged glances, faces set with steely resolve. As one, they nodded. Logan straightened his uniform and strode toward the lead ship, the others falling into step behind him. "It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one," Logan said, his voice ringing through the hangar. "We have been pushed too far, and now we push back. Today, we bring the fight to the Council's door. Today, they learn the consequences of their betrayal. Today, we unleash the Sigma fleet." Light years away, Counselor Xanth lounged on a floating divan in his lavish quarters, the very picture of decadence. The craggy-faced Ithorian sipped a glowing green liquor, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. The drink was potent enough to strip paint off a starship hull, but to Xanth it might as well have been water. An air chime sounded, and Xanth glanced up languidly as a hollow screen winked on. The face of Yik, his aide, swam into view. The diminutive Aeron's normally gray skin flushed an anxious violet. "Counselor, our long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels entering our system at high speeds," Yik said, his voice tight. Xanth waved a dismissive hand, his many rings glinting. So, send a patrol to intercept them. Probably just some upstart race trying to make a name for themselves. Yik shook his head, the movement jerky with barely suppressed panic. Sir, the patrol is already gone. They were destroyed the moment they entered weapons range of the unknown ships. We didn't even have time to get a visual on what attacked them. Xanth sat bolt upright, his drink sloshing over the side of the goblet. What? How is that possible? What kind of weapons are they using? Xanth lurched to his feet, striding over to an ornate control panel set into the wall. His fingers flew over the interface, punching in a code. The room darkened as a massive holographic display burst to life, filling the air with a glowing star map of the Aoran system. A cluster of angry red dots was speeding toward the central blue orb that represented the Aoran homeworld. Xanth stared uncomprehendingly as he took in the sheer number of incoming ships. By the gods, there are hundreds of them. How could an unknown race possibly have a fleet that size without us knowing about it? An icy tendril of dread curled in Xanth's gut as he studied the display, a horrifying suspicion crystallizing in his mind. He turned to the holo screen, meeting Yik's terrified gaze. Yik, tell me everything you can about the configuration and capabilities of those ships. Leave nothing out. Xanth's voice was deathly calm, belying the fear churning inside him. Because if he was right about the identity of these invaders, then he had just made the gravest mistake of his life, a mistake that might very well spell the end of everything he knew. Yik's report was not encouraging. The ships were angular and sleek, their hulls composed of an unknown iridescent alloy that defied scans. They moved with impossible grace and speed, their formations flawless, and their weapons, by the ancestors, their weapons. Plasma cannons that tore through shields like they were paper. Missiles that moved faster than the eye could track and never missed. Some strange directed energy beam that sliced ships into pieces with surgical precision. But worst of all was the symbol emblazoned on the prows of the incoming ships. A symbol that every species in the galaxy had grown to fear, even if only through whispered rumors and half-remembered legends. The symbol of the Terran Dominion. Humanity had returned, and this time they had come not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors. Conquerors armed with technology beyond the Aoran's wildest nightmares. Xanth stumbled back from the display, his heart's hammering a panicked staccato beat against his ribs. He thought of the human child cut down on the floor of the council chambers on his order, the catalyst for this invasion. He had gravely miscalculated. He knew that now. They all had. And now his people would pay the price for his arrogance. As the Terran fleet drew inexorably closer, Xanth found himself wondering if there was any force in the universe that could stop the oncoming storm. Somehow, he doubted it. On the view screen, Xanth's eyes bulged, his mouth opening and closing like a beached fish. He gripped the arms of his command chair, the plastic creaking under the force of his talons. Logan didn't give him a chance to recover. Xanth seemed to deflate, his shoulders slumping. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "What do you want, human?" Logan leaned forward, his eyes boring into Xanth. "Justice. The Council will rescind its ban on human FTL travel, effective immediately. You will acknowledge our right to expand and explore as we see fit. Any further acts of aggression against humanity will be met with swift and devastating retaliation." Xanth's nostrils flared, his pride warring with his fear. "The Council will never agree to your demands. You're just one species. You can't dictate terms to the entire galaxy." He nodded to Samir, who typed a command into his console. The view screen split, Xanth's image shrinking to a corner as a new visual took center stage. It showed the wreckage of the destroyed Ithorian battlecruiser, the twisted metal still glowing cherry red. But it was what was happening around the debris field that made Xanth gasp. Swarms of small, agile craft were pouring out of the Sigma fleet's hangar bays, darting toward the remaining Aoran ships like angry hornets. They moved with impossible speed and grace, weaving and dodging through the defensive fire with ease. And then they opened up with their own weapons, and the Aoran ships began to die. Beams of searing blue-white energy sliced through shields and hulls alike, leaving glowing scars in their wake. Missiles streaked from launch tubes, corkscrewing through space to impact with devastating force. The Aoran return fire was sporadic, panicked. They couldn't seem to lock onto the human fighters, their targeting systems confused by the strange material of their hulls. In mere minutes, a full third of the Aoran fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. The remaining ships were in disarray, their formation broken, their captains shouting contradictory orders. It was a rout. Throughout it all, the Sigma fleet hung back, weapons primed but silent. They didn't need to engage. Their fighter screen was more than enough to handle the outclassed Ithorian warships. Logan turned back to Xanth, his expression grim. "I won't ask again, Counselor. Yield and let this be the end of it." Xanth slumped back in his chair, all the fight gone out of him. He looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They had gravely underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. With a trembling hand, Xanth reached out and terminated the transmission. The view screen went dark. Logan turned to Hawkins, his eyes hard. "Signal the fleet, all ships, weapons tight, give them a chance to comply." Hawkins nodded, relaying the order. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Every eye was glued to the tactical display, watching the red and blue icons that represented the two fleets. Then, slowly, the red icons began to move. One by one, the Ioran ships were powering down their weapons, their drives. They were surrendering. A cheer went up from the human crew, fists pumping the air, backs being slapped. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees. But Logan didn't join in the celebration. He just stared at the display, his face an unreadable mask. He knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not forgive this humiliation easily. There would be repercussions, political and military. The road ahead would be long and hard, paved with conflict and sacrifice. But Logan also knew that this was a turning point. No longer would humanity be content to live under the Council's thumb. No longer would they be second-class citizens in their own galaxy. Today, they had proven that they could not only stand up to the alien powers that sought to control them, but that they could beat them. Today, they had taken their first step toward a new future. A future where humanity charted its own course among the stars. And may God help anyone who tried to stand in their way. Xanth's bulging eyes darted across the readouts, the numbers and symbols blurring together into a maelstrom of impending doom. The human ships had vanished from the screens, as if they'd never been there at all. But the Counselor knew better. They were out there, waiting, invisible predators ready to strike. He slammed a webbed fist on the console, barking orders in the guttural Ithorian language. "Surround them, box them in and destroy them." The Aoran fleet lurched into motion, the ponderous capital ships straining to outmaneuver their nimble adversaries. They spread out in a vast sphere, weapons bristling from every surface as they sought to entrap the Terran Sigma fleet. On the Indomitable's bridge, Logan leaned back in his command chair, a smile playing across his lips as he watched the aliens' clumsy attempt at tactics. Beside him, Samir frowned at the display. "They're trying to hem us in, cut off our escape routes. Should I order the fleet to pull back?" Logan shook his head, eyes glittering with anticipation. "Negative. They want to play at being the superior species. Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. All ships," he leaned forward, keying the fleet-wide comm, "initiate Ghost Protocol." A chorus of acknowledgements lit up the comm board. On the view screen, the Sigma fleet seemed to ripple and distort, the contours of the ships blurring and then fading from view entirely as the advanced stealth field engaged. In seconds, the human vessels had vanished from both visual and sensor detection, wraiths haunting the void. Xanth gaped at his displays in disbelief, his crew erupting into a cacophony of panicked shouts and warning klaxons. The human ships were just gone, as if they had never existed. "Impossible!" the Counselor roared, but his words dissolved into a scream as the Aoran flagship convulsed under a titanic impact. Sparks geysered from shattered consoles, the deck pitching wildly beneath Xanth's feet. All around, the rest of the Aoran armada was faring no better. Blooms of fire and shrapnel burst from a dozen ships as the first salvo from the invisible Sigma fleet found its mark. The aliens' shields flared and died under the onslaught, their hull plates crumpling like foil as the undetectable projectiles slammed home. Xanth staggered to the flagship's viewport, his heart's pounding a terrified rhythm in his chest. He watched in mute horror as his fleet was torn apart piece by piece, the human weapons striking with merciless precision. On the Indomitable, Logan observed the one-sided slaughter with cold satisfaction. Let the aliens feel the same fear and helplessness they had inflicted on so many. Let them reap the bitter harvest of their cruelty and arrogance. "Ceasefire," he ordered after a long moment, the words heavy with finality. As quickly as it had begun, the barrage halted, leaving the once proud Aoran fleet shattered and leaderless. Smoldering hulks drifted in the silent void, the pitiful remnants of the Council's might. Logan stared at Xanth through the comm screen, his gaze searing in its intensity. When he spoke, each word was edged in steel. "Look upon your fleet now, Counselor. See how it has been humbled, how your vaunted power has been proven to be nothing more than a brittle facade. Just as you held the life of that innocent child in your hands, so now I hold the fate of your entire species." He leaned forward, his face filling the screen, eyes boring into the trembling Aoran. "I want you to feel that fear, Xanth. I want you to know in the depths of your soul how close you are to annihilation, how easy it would be for me to give the order and consign your wretched kind to oblivion." The human smiled then, a cold and terrible thing, devoid of warmth or mercy. "But I won't. Not yet. I spare you now for one purpose only, to be a messenger. You will return to your council, and you will tell them what transpired here. You will make them understand that the age of their dominion is at an end. Humanity will no longer tolerate the yoke of oppression. We will claim our rightful place among the stars, and we will brook no opposition. Those who stand against us will be ground to dust and cast into the stellar winds." He raised a hand in mocking benediction. "Go now, Xanth. Run back to your masters with your tail between your legs and pray that when next we meet, I am feeling merciful, for your sake and for the sake of your entire race." The transmission cut off, leaving Xanth to stare at a blank screen, the taste of ashes thick on his tongue. The galaxy had changed this day, and he had been the catalyst. Logan terminated the transmission with a curt nod, Xanth's face vanishing from the view screen. He turned to face his bridge crew, his brow furrowed. "This is only the start. The Council won't let this stand. They'll gather their forces and hit us with everything they've got." Samir spoke up, his fingers flying over his console. "Captain, if the Council unites the other species against us, even the Sigma fleet could be outmatched. We've got the tech advantage, but they have the numbers." Logan nodded, his tactical mind already mapping out potential strategies. "Then we need to level the playing field. Helm, plot a course for the Corax Nebula. Max, burn." The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances, but leapt into action, hands darting over controls. The deck thrummed beneath their feet as the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light as they hurtled through the void. Logan gathered his officers in the briefing room, the holographic display casting a ghostly blue glow over their faces. The Corax Nebula is Vorian territory. They used to be a powerful warrior culture before the Council conquered them centuries ago. They've been toiling as slaves ever since. Our intel suggests they're primed for an uprising, and an alliance with them could give us the manpower we need. The fleet dropped back into real space on the outskirts of the nebula, its swirling purple and blue gases painting the view screen. The sensors pinged with contacts, a network of Vorian mining outposts, each one crawling with armed Council overseers. Logan's lips curled into a predatory smile. "All ships disengage cloak." The human fleet shimmered into existence, the sudden appearance of the gleaming warships sending the overseers into a panicked frenzy. Within minutes, the Council ships were in full retreat, their engines flaring as they fled, leaving the bewildered but hopeful Vorian workers staring out at the human vessels. Logan opened a channel to the largest outpost, and a weathered Vorian face filled the screen, his scales marred by old battle scars. The alien regarded Logan warily. "I am Captain Logan Carter of Earth. We are here to offer you a chance to break your chains and take vengeance on your enslavers." The Vorian narrowed his eyes, suspicion written in every line of his body. "And why should we trust you, human? Your species are newcomers to the galactic stage. What could you possibly do for us?" In response, Logan transmitted the footage of the confrontation with Xanth and the decisive rout of the Aoran Armada. As the Vorian leader watched, his eyes widened, disbelief giving way to a fierce, hungry gleam. When the recording finished, he looked at Logan with newfound respect. "You've shown your strength, Earther. What do you want from us?" Logan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "I propose an alliance. Fight alongside us, and together we will shatter the Council's grip on the galaxy, not just for humanity, but for all those they've ground under their heel." The Vorian threw his head back and laughed, a harsh guttural sound filled with bloodlust and the promise of violence. "You have a deal, human. The Vorian will stand with you, and together we will savor the taste of the Council's terror." As the screen went dark, Logan turned to his crew, a fire burning in his eyes. "The game pieces are moving into position. Prepare the fleet. It's time we bring the fight to the Council's doorstep." The combined human and Vorian fleet tore out of hyperspace at the fringes of the Galactic Council's home system, a densely packed cluster of heavily populated worlds and immense orbital installations. Instantly, warning klaxons wailed across the system as the Council's defenses came online, a seemingly impenetrable barrier of warships assembling around the central planet, the heart of the Council's dominion. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Logan surveyed the gathered forces with a discerning gaze. They've pulled back their fleets from across the galaxy. The core of their military strength is here. Samir scowled at the tactical readout. "Even with the Vorian numbers, we're still outmatched in raw firepower." Logan nodded grimly. "Which is why we won't be engaging them head-on. We have to be tactical about this." He keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All vessels, commence Phase 1. The human and Vorian ships began to maneuver, not toward the waiting Council armada, but in a broad arc skirting the system's perimeter, angling for a massive space station bristling with sensor arrays and communication antenna. "That's their primary system-wide comms and surveillance nexus," Logan explained. "We knock that out, we blind them and sow chaos in their coordination." As the fleet closed on the station, the Council warships guarding it accelerated to intercept. Just before they entered firing range, the human vessels shimmered and multiplied, each ship abruptly fracturing into a dozen mirror images. The Council ships wavered, thrown into confusion as their scanners were inundated with false returns. By the time they realized the ruse, it was too late. The true human ships, shrouded by the sensor phantoms, were already on top of them. The void around the station erupted into a vicious melee, the Council vessels fighting valiantly, but outclassed by the humans' technological edge and the Vorians' sheer savagery. Within minutes, the station's defenses were overrun, and a fusillade of human quantum torpedoes reduced the massive construct to an expanding cloud of wreckage. Across the system, Council ships reeled as their communications were cut, their fleet-wide data network dissolving into white noise. Amidst the disarray, the human and Vorian ships pressed their advantage, hammering key targets, shipyards, weapons emplacements, resupply points, with surgical exactitude. On the Indomitable, Logan watched as the Council's tight defensive formation started to fray, their ships floundering to react to threats flaring up across the system. Phase 1 accomplished. Commence Phase 2. The human and Vorian fleet regrouped, no longer skirting the main Council armada, but driving straight at it, weapons hot. Logan opened a channel to the Council flagship. "This is Captain Logan Carter of the Earth Sigma fleet. Your comms are severed, your defenses are buckling, and your fleet is in chaos. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared." There was a protracted silence, then a familiar visage filled the screen. Counselor Xanth, his features contorted with spiteful defiance. "We will never yield to you, human scum. We will battle to the last vessel, the last warrior, the last gasp." Logan regarded him icily. "So be it." He cut the channel and turned to his crew. "Signal all ships. No mercy given. Let's end this." The human and Vorian ships plunged into the heart of the Council fleet, weapons blazing as the alien vessels swarmed to meet them. The void lit up with the glare of 1,000 exploding suns as the two sides clashed, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the gulf between them. Logan gripped the arms of his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a barrage of impacts, its shields flaring. On the view screen, a human destroyer erupted into a ball of plasma as a Council dreadnought's siege cannon found its mark. A Vorian cruiser, trailing flames and debris, rammed a Council frigate, both ships disappearing in a blinding flash of mutual annihilation. "Concentrate fire on their command ships," Logan barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. We cut off the head, the body dies. The human fleet shifted formation, the Indomitable at the tip of the spear as they bore down on the Council's leadership vessels. The alien ships moved to screen their commanders, pouring a storm of fire into the human advance. The Council battleship, its hull pitted and scorched, loomed before the Indomitable, its grav cannons hammering at the human dreadnought's shield. Logan gritted his teeth as consoles sparked and exploded around him, the bridge filling with acrid smoke. "Divert power to forward shields and weapons," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Samir, find me a weak point." Samir's hands flew over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. There, a fluctuation in their AR shield grid, coordinates Gamma 615. The Indomitable swung hard to starboard, its prow aimed squarely at the Council battleship's stern. A heartbeat later, its guns erupted, a searing lance of concentrated energy scorching across the void to impact directly on the weak point in the alien ship's defenses. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Council vessel seemed to bulge outward, cracks racing across its hull as secondary explosions chained through its interior. With a final soundless detonation, the mighty warship shattered, torn apart from within by the catastrophic reactor breach. Through the expanding field of debris, Logan caught a glimpse of the Council flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons, Xanth's ship, the seat of the Council's power and arrogance. Logan leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. All ships converge on the flagship. It's time to cut the head off the snake. The human and Vorian ships smashed into the Council armada, weapons blazing. Beams of searing energy sliced through enemy hulls. Missiles corkscrewed through the void to detonate against failing shields and blossoms of fire. The Council ships returned fire, but the Allies' advanced technology and sheer ferocity overwhelmed them. At the heart of the chaos, the Indomitable and Xanth's flagship pounded each other in a vicious duel. Lances of energy crackled back and forth between the two mighty vessels, chewing through armor, boiling away hull plating. On the Indomitable's bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks. Logan gripped his command chair as the deck shuddered beneath him. The Indomitable's guns thundered in response, a relentless barrage hammering into the Council flagship's stern. The enemy ship's shields flared, flickered, then died under the onslaught. Flame blossomed from its engine section as the Indomitable's weapons found their mark. The flagship spun out of control, trailing debris and plasma. But it was too late. The dreadnought's main gun, a gargantuan particle beam cannon, unleashed its fury. The Indomitable's shields flared brilliantly for an instant before collapsing. The beam slammed into the ship's bow, burning through decks, vaporizing bulkheads, leaving utter devastation in its wake. The bridge dissolved into chaos, panels detonating, spewing flame and shrapnel. Crewmen were hurled from their stations as the deck heaved. Logan dragged himself upright, blood running into his eyes from a gash on his forehead. Damage reports flooded in. Hull breaches, weapons disabled, engines crippled. But the dreadnought pressed its attack, bracketing the wounded Indomitable with salvo after punishing salvo. Logan could only watch helplessly as his ship shuddered and burned under the onslaught, his vengeance slipping away. Then a miracle. A squadron of Vorian cruisers, seeing the Indomitable's desperate plight, broke formation and charged the dreadnought, guns blazing. Caught off guard, its shields already strained from its duel with the Indomitable, the Council ship's defenses swiftly crumbled under the concentrated fire. The Vorian ships swarmed over it like enraged wasps, explosions stippling the dreadnought's hull as the Vorians zeroed in on its weapons and engines with merciless precision. In minutes, the once unstoppable warship was reduced to a shattered hulk, drifting lifelessly. In minutes, the once unstoppable warship was reduced to a shattered hulk, drifting lifelessly. A ragged cheer went up on the Indomitable's battered bridge. Logan sagged back in his chair, exhausted and bloody, but alive. He surveyed the battle space where the Council fleet, shaken by the destruction of its flagship and dreadnought, was falling back in disarray. "Ceasefire," Logan ordered wearily. "Commence rescue and recovery, and someone bring me a damage assessment." He closed his eyes briefly. "We've carried the day, but this war is far from finished." In the aftermath of the Titanic battle, the Indomitable drifted in space, her hull scored by energy blasts, great rents torn in her armored sides. Damage control teams rushed through the corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting power from shattered conduits. On the bridge, Logan conferred with his chief engineer, poring over damage reports on a flickering screen. "Route all available power to the repair drones," Logan ordered. "Prioritize hull integrity and engine function. We need to be battle-ready as soon as possible." As the crew worked feverishly to bring the mighty ship back to fighting form, the rest of the fleet limped into view, many vessels bearing the scars of the ferocious engagement. Vorian ships, their angular hulls adorned with vibrant war paint, docked with the Indomitable, disgorging hordes of boisterous warriors onto the human ship's decks. In the main hangar, a raucous celebration was underway as the Vorians toasted their victory, clashing their weapons together and downing great flagons of potent, shimmering liquor. Human crew members caught up in the infectious spirit joined in the revelry, trading war stories and claps on the back with their fierce allies. But even as the festivities reached a fever pitch, urgent communications began flooding the Indomitable's comm channels. Logan, his face grim, called his senior staff to the briefing room. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy," he said, his voice tight. "With the Council's central fleet destroyed and their comms in disarray, uprisings are breaking out on dozens of worlds. Long-oppressed species are rising against their council masters." Samir, his eyes alight, leaned forward. "This is the chance we've been waiting for, sir. The Council is reeling. If we strike now hard and fast, we could end their tyranny once and for all." Logan nodded, his mind racing. He turned to the Vorian commander, a grizzled warrior with a jagged scar bisecting his face. "What say you, Commander Trax? Your people have suffered under the Council's yoke for centuries. Will you fight with us in this final push?" Trax bared his fangs in a fierce grin. "The Vorian are with you, human. Our blades are thirsty for Council blood. Give the word and we will unleash the full fury of our wrath." Logan stood, his eyes hard as flint. "Then it's settled. We'll launch a coordinated assault on the Council's key strongholds. We'll hit them from all sides, cut off the head of the snake. It's time to finish this once and for all." As the fleet leaders departed to brief their crews and prepare for the coming offensive, an urgent hail blinked on Logan's personal comm. He frowned, stepping into a private alcove to take the call. The face that appeared on the screen was haggard, drawn with fear and exhaustion. It was one of Logan's covert operatives deep in Council space. "Captain," the operative whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid of being overheard. "I have urgent news. Councillor Xanth, he's alive. He escaped the destruction of his flagship." Logan's blood ran cold. "What? How?" "I don't know, but he's rallying the remnants of the Council's forces, preparing for a counterattack. And Captain, there's more." The operative licked his lips, his voice trembling. "Xanth has a weapon, some kind of doomsday device. They say it has the power to destroy entire star systems. He's threatening to use it if the Council's rule is truly broken." Logan's fist clenched, his knuckles white. The stakes had just gotten unimaginably higher. If Xanth was allowed to unleash this weapon. "Understood," he said, his voice like gravel. "Keep me informed." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light, Logan stared out the viewport, his jaw tight. They were headed for a remote, heavily defended Council base where Xanth was reportedly holed up with his apocalyptic weapon. It would be a mission fraught with danger, a desperate race against annihilation. But as Logan looked around at the faces of his crew, hard and determined, he felt a flicker of hope amid the dread. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear. If anyone could pull this off, it was them. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Council base's sensor range. Logan turned to his tactical officer. "Initiate full stealth protocols," he ordered. "Not so much as a whisper, you understand?" As the mighty ship slipped into the shadow of an orbiting moon, sensor-absorbent coating rendering it all but invisible, Logan gathered his strike team in the armory. They were the best of the best, each one handpicked for their skills and courage. As they checked their weapons and armor, an electric tension filled the air, a coiled anticipation. Logan met each of their eyes in turn, his gaze unwavering. "You all know the stakes," he said quietly. "If we fail, if Xanth deploys that weapon, there's no coming back from that." He placed a hand on the nearest soldier's shoulder, his grip firm. "But we will not fail. We can't. The fate of the galaxy rests on our shoulders." The strike team nodded as one, their faces set with iron resolve. They knew the odds, knew the risks, but they also knew their duty. As the Indomitable glided silently toward the looming council base, Logan felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere in that sprawling complex of steel and shadows, Xanth was waiting, his finger poised over the trigger of damnation. It would be a battle unlike any they had faced before, a desperate struggle in the heart of the enemy's power. But as Logan checked the charge on his plasma rifle, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Council had underestimated humanity for the last time. One way or another, this ended today. The Indomitable glided silently through the void, a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge, Logan stood tense and ready, his eyes fixed on the view screen displaying the Council base growing larger by the second. "Prepare for breach," he ordered, his voice low and steady. His hand-picked strike team, the best of the best, checked their weapons one final time, faces set with grim determination. As the ship closed in, the base's defenses came to life, energy cannons and missile batteries swiveling to lock on. But the Indomitable was ready, its advanced stealth technology rendering it all but invisible to the enemy's sensors. "Fire the EMP," Logan commanded. A pulse of blue-white energy erupted from the ship's prow, washing over the base in a cascading wave. In an instant, the defenses fell silent, their power systems fried. "Go, go, go!" Logan roared, leading the charge as the strike team surged forward, breaching pods slamming into the base's hull. They cut through the outer bulkheads like a plasma torch through butter, spilling the team into the corridors beyond. Alarms blared and emergency lights flashed as the Council's elite guards rallied to meet the intruders. Plasma fire crisscrossed the halls as the two forces clashed, the air thick with the stench of ozone and burnt flesh. Logan was a whirlwind of motion, his rifle spitting blue death as he advanced, his team close behind. They pushed deeper into the labyrinthine base, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. But the Council guards were relentless, pouring into the corridors like an endless tide. For everyone that fell, two more seemed to take their place, forcing the strike team to fight for every inch of ground. Logan gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, close enough to singe his hair. He dropped to one knee, snapping off a trio of shots that sent a guard tumbling, a smoking hole in his chest. All around him, his team was locked in desperate struggles, the close quarters leaving no room for error. He saw Sergeant Hawkins grappling with a hulking alien, the two rolling on the ground in a tangle of limbs. Private Xiang fell, clutching at the blackened ruin of her leg, her screams mixing with the cacophony of battle. But still, they pushed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to fail now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of blood and fire, they reached the heart of the base. The doors to the central command center loomed before them, massive and imposing. Logan didn't hesitate. He slapped a breaching charge on the unyielding metal and stood back, his finger hovering over the detonator. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into smoke and thunder as the charge blew, ripping the doors from their frame. Logan was moving before the echoes faded, storming into the room beyond with his rifle raised. And there, standing amidst a bank of consoles and holographic displays, was Counselor Xanth. The alien's face twisted into a cruel smile as he saw Logan, his hand hovering over. "You're too late, human," he gloated, his voice dripping with malice. "With a single command, I can unleash the doomsday device and reduce your precious." Logan leveled his weapon at the Counselor, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Xanth. Step." But Xanth only laughed, a manic gleam in his eyes. "You think you've won? You think your little rebellion means anything? The Council's power is absolute, and I will see it restored, even if I have to destroy 1,000 worlds to do it." His hand slammed down on the control panel, the sound echoing through the sudden silence. But nothing happened. No alarms, no flashing lights, no indication that the doomsday device had been activated. Xanth's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. He jabbed at the controls again and again, growing more frantic with each failed attempt. He whirled to face Logan, his face a mask of rage and confusion. Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Did you really think we'd come here without a plan?" he asked softly. "While you were focused on us, our operatives were hacking your systems, disabling your weapon. It's over, Xanth. You've lost." For a long moment, Xanth just stared, his mouth working soundlessly. Then, with a scream of pure animalistic fury, he lunged at Logan, a hidden blade sliding from his sleeve. Logan met him head-on, blocking the alien's strike with his rifle. The two leaders grappled, trading blows with brutal efficiency as the command center shuddered around them, rocked by the ongoing space battle overhead. They crashed into consoles, sparks flying as delicate equipment shattered under their weight. Logan felt the bite of Xanth's blade, a line of fire across his ribs, but he pushed through the pain, retaliating with a vicious elbow to the alien's throat. Xanth staggered back, gasping, and Logan pressed his advantage. A swift kick to the knee, a hammer blow to the temple, and the counselor was down, his blade clattering to the floor. Logan stood over his fallen foe, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. Xanth glared up at him, hatred etched into every line of his face. "Finish it then, human," he spat, his words thick with blood. "Take your revenge." For a long, tense moment, Logan just stared at him, his rifle unwavering. The temptation was there, burning in his veins like molten lead, to end it here, to repay all the pain and suffering the Council had inflicted with a single, justified pull of the trigger. But even as his finger tightened, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He turned, and what he saw turned his blood to ice in his veins. The Doomsday device's power core, a pulsating sphere of dark energy, was fluctuating wildly, arcs of electricity crawling across its surface. Warning lights flashed urgent red, and the low, ominous hum of building charge filled the air. In an instant, Logan understood. In the chaos of the fight, a stray shot or errant blow must have damaged the containment field. The core was destabilizing rapidly, its energies building to a cataclysmic release. Logan's mind raced, desperately seeking a solution, but he already knew there wasn't one. Not enough time to evacuate, not enough time to try and repair the damage. Only one path remained, a last desperate gamble. He turned to his strike team, the survivors of that hellish advance. They looked back at him, battered and bloodied but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. "Get back to the ship," he ordered, his voice rough with emotion. "All of you, get as far away from here as you can." "But sir," Sergeant Hawkins protested, stepping forward. "What about you?" Logan met his gaze, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "I'll stay behind, try to contain the blast, buy you as much time as I can." Understanding dawned in the sergeant's eyes, followed by a flash of anguish. He started to argue, but Logan cut him off with a raised hand. "That's an order, Hawkins. Get our people out. It's the only way." For a long, painful moment, the two men just stared at each other, a lifetime of service and sacrifice passing between them. Then, slowly, Hawkins nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "It's been an honor, sir," he said softly, snapping a crisp salute. Logan returned the salute, his vision blurring. The honor was mine. One by one, the strike team filed out, each pausing to offer their own farewell. A clasp of the hand, a murmured word of thanks. Logan watched them go, pride and sorrow warring in his chest. Finally, he was alone, the command center silent, save for the ominous hum of the destabilizing core. He turned to face it, squaring his shoulders against the rising tide of fear. He thought of Earth, the rolling green hills of his childhood home. He thought of his crew, the brave men and women who had followed him to hell and back. And he thought of that small, innocent child, the one whose death had set all of this in motion. "This is for you, kid," he whispered, stepping forward into the maelstrom. "For all of you." The world dissolved into searing light and roaring thunder, and Captain Logan Carter knew no more. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.